Hey everyone, and welcome back or welcome to the channel. Let me introduce Tiguan number 2, my second Tiguan within a month. For those of you who are new here or you're hopping around throughout my videos over the past 2 to 3 weeks, my first Volkswagen Tiguan needed a new turbo, not even 1,000 miles into ownership. That is right. Sadly, I'm not the only one that has been dealing with this. And, well, I continue getting comments from you guys, which is not making me feel any better about this Tiguan I'm standing next to today. Because some of you are saying that you needed a new turbo after 2,000 miles, after 3,000 miles, after 3,500 miles. And I've only seen one comment that has said, well, my Tiguan's doing just fine at 4,000, which, best of luck to you. I hope that you guys do not have the same issue that we're all experiencing here. Now, some of you might be thinking, wait a minute. Didn't you just have this exact same Tiguan with the same color and sandstone on Grigio? I did, and that first one is still in the service department. There's only 2 differences here with this Tiguan to prove that I'm on number 2. Let's go over them. So difference number 1, for those of you who have been watching my videos a lot here, I do the bumper dillo on this particular Tiguan. My first one didn't have that. And then as you can tell on this particular Tiguan, I have 370 miles on the odometer. Also, one more thing I want to point out here is with the second Volkswagen Tiguan, I'm getting some great fuel economy. 26.7 miles per gallon so far today and close to 40 miles of driving. I never got those numbers in the first Tiguan. Unfortunately, Tiguan number 2 has its own flaws and quirks that are similar to what you guys are experiencing that I didn't have to deal with in my first Tiguan. Now, do I find any of these a bit of a concern or inconvenience? Maybe a little bit, but if this vehicle works, if I don't have a turbo that blows within about 1,000 miles, I'm going to be okay. The first minor tech glitch is that sometimes my smartphone doesn't pair up to wireless Apple CarPlay. Is that a big deal? Absolutely not, because it's always wired in. That way it's charging, I have that connectivity. And my first Volkswagen Tiguan, the wireless phone charging pad didn't always work. So this way I know that it's charging, and also I'm going to be able to listen to my favorite music and have ways connected with that infotainment system. The second concern, or second tech glitch, does have me concerned. And I saw this error message pop up a few weeks ago in my first Tiguan, and when that error message popped up, I got the check engine light, and I also got limp mode. Now, I don't think there's any connection whatsoever, so I'm not going to jump to conclusions here. But sometimes when I turn on my Volkswagen Tiguan, I'll get an error message on the infotainment system pertaining to my seats. Now, the error message clears way too quickly for me to read everything. So when this error message pops up, it clears all my presets from my massaging seats, from my memory driver seat. So I'm forced to constantly find my ideal seating position when this error message pops up. Now, I have not seen that error message in about 4 or 5 days, so hopefully that's cleared. That does not pop up anymore. But it does have me a bit concerned because pattern, I'm recognizing a pattern here, so that's the one thing that just has me a bit uneasy. Then the last one, I don't think it's a big deal, but I didn't have this in my first Tiguan. I don't know if you guys can hear this. So I'm going to turn the fan up to its highest setting. It's not doing it today. So when I get up to the highest fan settings, it sounds like a jet is idling before takeoff. And it's usually behind me. There's like a whistle noise. I did not have that in the first Tiguan. Again, if any of these issues are things I'm going to have to deal with over the next couple months, hopefully the full year, and it doesn't mean I'm going to have a turbo issue, I'm okay. It's just that these minor tech glitches are something that Volkswagen is going to have to deal with and address in the next model year or refresh. So to ensure that Volkswagen Tiguan number 2 does not share the same fate as my first Tiguan, I am going to live by very strict guidelines here to make sure I reach 1,000 miles, maybe even 1 month of ownership, possibly 5,000 miles. I know the bar is set very, very low here. Now, some of you might be saying this is all conjecture, anecdotal. You don't have any evidence to suggest any of this. But I personally believe whether you buy your SEL R-Line Turbo in late October or January, it's possible, it is possible your Tiguan will have a faulty turbo. Because Volkswagen needs to address this at some point, but also they can't address this and remedy this issue within 2 short months. It's not going to happen. Now, since the turbo replacements are on back order and there is a 2-month wait, it's possible they found a new supplier or the supplier is going to fix all of this. But again, for all of us who have bought an SEL R-Line Turbo up to this point, I have no confidence that you're going to see this vehicle survive 10,000 miles without a major issue popping up. Now, returning to the guidelines here, you may have seen my recent short. I have to address one mistake that I made. I'll talk about that in a minute. The first one is going to be not to use remote start, and you're probably wondering why. With the 2026 Volkswagen Tiguan, if you have remote start built into your vehicle, there's two ways you can do this. With the key fob, so this would probably be the more reliable way if you want to warm up your vehicle early in the morning before setting off to work. And then you also have the My Volkswagen app on your smartphone. I would stay far away from the My Volkswagen app. Now, some of you did ask questions as to why I'm not going to use remote start when you watched that short a couple of days ago. And it's most because with the My Volkswagen app, and I had this happen to me about 2 or 3 times, so I would turn on the remote start and then the vehicle would shut off about 30 seconds later after initiating remote start. Now, when you're turning on your vehicle for the first time and it's a cold start, I don't think it's necessarily safe for the engine. But again, I don't think there's really much of a connection to the turbo. But just to be sure, just to be safe, I'm not using remote start. I am going to walk out of my house, turn on the vehicle, and just do it the old-fashioned way and sit and wait until this vehicle warms up before heading off to work or wherever I'm going, at least right now during the winter. But that is one thing I am going to steer clear of. It's the remote start. I don't trust it. And the fact that it did happen 3 times, and then when it did shut off after 30 seconds, I tried turning it on again, and I got the error message saying that if this issue persists, go to your Volkswagen dealership. So there might be a connection there, but again, I'm just trying to play it safe. My second guideline here is going to be sticking with the fuel requirements for the 2026 Volkswagen Tiguan. And this is where I made the mistake in my short. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to own that mistake. So as you can see, it says 87 octane, also 91 RON. 87 and 91 are the exact same. 91 RON is used in Europe. 87 AKI is what we use here in the US. So it's the same octane. Now, my last fill up, I used 89 at Shell. And what I've noticed here is better fuel economy. But I might adjust on the fly and go back to 87 here with this crossover. Now, do I believe there is a difference between 87, 89, 91, or 93 when you're using it for this crossover? No, I do not. I don't think it's a make or break deal. I don't think it has anything to do with the turbo. However, just sticking with the guidelines here, I think 87 is going to be the way to go with this Volkswagen Tiguan to make sure I do see 1,000 miles this time around. My last 2 guidelines are intertwined, at least in my opinion. The first one is going to be baby this crossover until the break-in period has been reached, which goes without saying, right? Whenever you buy a brand new vehicle, you're not going to mash on the throttle. You're not going to abuse this vehicle. But with the Tiguan, I have to be very delicate here with this crossover because during cold starts, when you're driving for the first time early in the morning or it's been sitting around for a bit, you have to ease on the throttle here because this transmission is clunky, it is not smooth, and even when it is warmed up, you gotta be careful here on the downshifts because you get that jolt. And a lot of you have been commenting in my videos saying I'm experiencing jolts when I'm starting up my vehicle or heading off to work after a cold start. So again, this is to minimize any possibility of breaking something with this engine, transmission, or even, of course, the turbo. And I know, like, this is all crazy stuff, right? I'm treating this Volkswagen Tiguan like an air-cooled Porsche 911, but it is what it is. My last guideline is going to be idling this vehicle just a little bit longer after a cold start and after the RPMs lower a bit. You guys have already been telling me that this is unnecessary because to get this vehicle up to temp, you have to drive it. I get all that. That's basic information when it comes to your engine and just owning a vehicle. Up here in Boston, we've had very, very cold days. And in fact, in a couple of days, we're going to have wind chills below like minus 20. So I'm going to have to be very careful with this crossover in the morning. And like I said before, this engine is a bit clunky. It's not smooth, and along with that transmission. So I want to get this vehicle just a little bit warmer before driving off to work or wherever I'm going. So do I think any of these guidelines are going to address this issue or minimize the possibility of having a turbo go? No, I do not, because I think that is a manufacturer defect or a supplier defect. But if we can minimize the chances of this going wrong within 1,000 miles, I'm going to do it. So if you guys are with me and you want to stick with these guidelines, go right ahead. I think this is probably the best way to ensure that I see 2,000, 3,000 miles, but I would not be surprised if in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I come back on here and I say, I got the check engine light and limp mode. Anecdotally, this Tiguan drives so much better than my first one. But I can't speak in absolutes because my last Tiguan didn't make it 1,000 miles before needing a new turbo, and this Tiguan has less than 400 miles on the odometer. So right now I'm living 1 mile at a time. I'm kind of like Dom Toretto right now. I live my life 1 mile at a time. What I will say though is that this particular Tiguan is smoother, more consistent with its power delivery, and it doesn't feel like it's lagging. Even though with this transmission, it's a bit clunky at times, I feel like there's some good signs here where this might be the one. This might actually work. But then again, I read your comments, and when you're saying that, I need a new turbo after 2,000 miles, after 3,000 miles, after 3,500 miles, that's not making me feel any better. That's not making me feel really good about this vehicle moving forward. And I also have zero expectations, and I have zero confidence. So, from that perspective, I'm kind of playing with house money here, right? Like, if this fails me, this is all covered under warranty. It's then just headaches as to where I go from here, right? Like, do I go lemon law? Because up in Massachusetts, one thing I didn't talk about in my last video, not only, or you can get around the 3 strikes you're out, so that's basically the dealership fixing the problem 3 times, and then after, if that doesn't work, you can lemon law it. But also, if the vehicle is down 11 days consecutively, I can then pursue the lemon law. So there's at least that there. However, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to wait the 2 months if this turbo fails me and then see where I go from there. Because, one thing too is that, this isn't the dealer's fault. This is Volkswagen's problem. This is corporate, and I would go straight to them. And with Volkswagen, it's also possibly a supplier issue too with the turbo. So there's just a web here that we need to find what the problem is and then work our way up from there. I am going to answer your questions though if I can find a place to pull over and talk and have a Tiguan talk instead of the Taos talks that I was having before, and answering your questions pertaining to the deal that made it possible for me to hop into a replacement, and then also, where do I go from here? Why did I choose the R-Line Turbo? So I'm going to dive into those questions in a minute later on in this video. What I will say though is that with this Tiguan, having it for a week, pouring on miles, and forcibly driving long distances, I am going to be very disappointed if this one fails me, because I have loved every minute driving this crossover. I have really enjoyed my time here because it's sporty, it's smooth, it feels refined. That's what's so mind-blowing here. Because every other vehicle that had a catastrophic issue right from the start, those vehicles tend to feel unfinished. They tend to feel rushed. That isn't the case with the R-Line Turbo. This generation was very well thought out. And that's why it's so frustrating, because this is a complete product. This was not a rushed product. You feel that with the interior refinement. You feel that with the performance. It's the supplier issue. It's something wrong with the engine or the turbo. And the fact that we can narrow it down, we're gonna find a solution at some point. Now, my goal, eventually, if this lasts, if this persists, my goal is to eventually find on Car and Driver or Consumer Reports an article that says that Volkswagen is stop selling with the R-Line Turbo, or there's a mass buyback. I highly doubt there's going to be a mass buyback though. That's going to be on an individual basis. That's going to be up to the owner's discretion at that point, or the dealer's discretion, and whatever they do and whatever they feel is right. But I do think though that for the models that are at dealerships right now, that are sitting on inventory, those will have to get fixed. I, for one, do not believe there's one Tiguan on the lot right now, not one SEL R-Line Turbo, that isn't affected by this, that doesn't have a faulty turbo. That's just my take though, and we're gonna have to find that out later on, but that's just where my mindset is at right now. But in the meantime, I'm really enjoying this Tiguan. This is why I bought it. This is why there was no other alternative at this price point. But we'll have to wait and see, though. I can't speak in absolutes because this vehicle has failed me before, and it could fail me again. So to close out this video, I am going to do a very brief Q&A. It's warm enough out where I can just sit in the back of my Tiguan. Lately, it has been brutally cold. So I've had questions ranging from who is this dealership to the specifics of my deal to get a second Volkswagen Tiguan, and then also why the heck am I doing this to myself again, buying a second Volkswagen Tiguan, fully knowing that there could be turbo issues within the next 1,000 to 2,000 miles. Well, first off, my Volkswagen dealership, like I said before, is phenomenal. It's Jarvis Volkswagen in Lowell, Massachusetts. They have been straightforward with everything, whether it was the service department and also telling me that I needed a new turbo, when a lot of dealerships early on, even though this was only like 3 weeks ago, were basically clearing the codes and sending people back out there. They're like, we're not sending you back out. We're not having you go out on the road and then having this check engine light and also limp mode happen again, because you're going to need a new turbo. And then also they gave me a loaner, which they didn't have to do. And then on top of that, Volkswagen, or Jarvis Volkswagen themselves, contacts me and says, hey, we have a solution here. We know your Tiguan is down, and we have the ability to buy it back, and we can put you in an identical SEL R-Line turbo. And just from that offer alone, it's a no-brainer, right? Like, I don't need to contact my state through the Lemon Law. I don't need to contact Volkswagen. I don't need to sit out for 2 months and drive a Taos around. So from that perspective, I'm like, all right, done deal. Let's figure this out. Now, also the specifics of that deal. First off, my dealership did all the footwork. They did all of that, right? They did all the paperwork. They did everything, which I'm very grateful for, because that's less headaches on my end. Now, when it comes to matching the price, and this is why I went with the SEL R-Line Turbo again, because the pricing was going to match up perfectly. I didn't have to go back to the drawing board or back to the negotiating table and figure out the numbers if I was going to drop down a trim to the SE R-Line Black or SE. Also, I didn't want those two trims. I want my SEL R-Line Turbo. I want my 268 horsepower, my ambient lighting, and my massaging seats. So there was incentives to push me back into the SEL R-Line Turbo, but then also the financial side, the numbers side, right? It was basically a VIN swap. If you know the industry, it was basically a VIN swap where all I had to do was just sign papers, didn't have to pay extra, contact my insurance, and that was it. Done deal. So the ease of transition was also why I did this too. You know, the fact that my dealership did all that work on their end, and then Volkswagen Corporate came in. When I look at the numbers, when I look at the sheet, Volkswagen Corporate, I think they put in a significant amount of money to cover the depreciation and some other things to make the deal work, to make the numbers work almost identically. And, you know, credit to Volkswagen Corporate for stepping in. Now, for those of you who are saying, well, Volkswagen or your dealership only did this because you're on YouTube, think about this for a minute. That is bold and very, very risky, because I 100% believe this Tiguan is going to have the exact same problem. I believe that every single SEL R-Line Turbo that was made from whatever the first batch was, probably September or October, to now with my model being built in December, I believe every single model has a faulty turbo. It's just a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb is what it is. That's essentially what it is. So if you think about it from Volkswagen's perspective, which is why I don't think Volkswagen Corporate knew this specific case, they'd probably be like, Mike, we don't want you in another Tiguan because we're trying to figure this issue out ourselves. We don't want you making more videos saying that the SEL R-Line Turbo is faulty, because who knows how much damage I have done to them, right? Like, just from a monetary standpoint, where someone's probably watched my videos and said, you know what, I'm not buying this. I'm going to go with a Hyundai. I'm going to go with a Mazda. I'm going to go with a Toyota. I mean, I have probably been a thorn in their side. They probably want me to be dead silent. They want this resolved. So if you think about it from that perspective, yes, I think there is some validity to that statement where it's like, yeah, maybe since I am on YouTube, there was some, you know, some way for me to, you know, make things right or whatever it was. But there's also the other side of the equation where this vehicle, there's some issues with it. So, you know, that's a risky move on Volkswagen's part. Then the last question is going to be, why am I doing this again with the SEL R-Line Turbo? And there's definitely motivations, right? Like, this vehicle is the one I wanted. Because if you think about it, if I had to sit out 2 months, that's requiring me to then go test out some more vehicles and trying to figure out what's the next replacement. You know, like, just the ease of hopping into something that I wanted was also really strong there for me to hop back into this vehicle. But then also another thing too is that from a journalistic standpoint, I'm curious now. I want to see this through. I want to see if this model actually has a faulty turbo. Like, it's just a curiosity in me. And the fact that, you know, I can document this and I can maybe make a difference. Like, I think my goal, my ultimate goal at this point is that I'd like to see Volkswagen make things right. Whether it is a stop sale, mass buyback, which that's not going to happen, but a stop sale could happen. Because I'm telling you this right now, all the SEL R-Line turbos that are on inventory at dealerships could be affected by this. So they're going to have to fix them. They're going to have to fix them eventually. A stop sale would help that out, but it's also not helping that there's a 2-month wait for turbo replacements. So, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, long term, probably 6 months down the road, we see something get brought up, whether it's through, you know, Volkswagen corporate having a release, like a press release, or maybe it's Car and Driver Consumer Reports saying something like along the lines that Volkswagen is, you know, buying back vehicles or stop selling vehicles for faulty turbos, whatever it is. That's my ultimate goal here. But also, I want this crossover to survive till the end of the year. I want to put miles on it and say in December, all right, I've experienced this crossover. It is now on to my next year-long tester. That's just who I am here. And maybe I'm looking at it from a journalistic perspective, but also there is the consumer side of me. There's the side of me that really wanted this vehicle. And like I talked about before, this particular Tiguan is driving really nice. And I've enjoyed the close to 500 miles of ownership so far with this Tiguan. So, you know, I'm rooting for it. I want it to do well. I want it to succeed. And then on the other side of things, with it being a faulty vehicle, with it having its issues, I want to see this through. I want to complete this particular journey with the Tiguan to make sure that all of you who are interested in buying one, you either wait it out for when Volkswagen fixes this, or you do look elsewhere, which I know Volkswagen does not want me saying, but I can't recommend this vehicle to anybody. So at the moment, you know, I'm here along with all of you guys experiencing these issues, and hopefully it does get resolved. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video and joining me throughout this entire saga and journey. There's a lot more coming because I do have plans to put on more miles this week, a couple more drives as well. I don't know if I'm going to have videos up per se. There might be some shorts here and there because I do have a couple drives I want to do. There's a couple places I want to go visit, and hopefully this makes it down to where I want to go. But either way, guys, this has just been a crazy 4 weeks or 4 to 5 weeks, you know. Thankfully, so far within the first week of ownership, I've had nothing pop up, no coolant issues like the last time. And like I said, I'm going to stick with these guidelines, and hopefully that gets me to 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles, wherever this journey leads me. I hope it gets me to that destination. But guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care and stay tuned for more.